The NCAA transfer portal is something that has rocked college football over the past few years, and BYU hasn't been immune. BYU has been in the Big 12 Conference for 3 seasons. In 2023, they went 5-7. In 2024, they went 11-2. And this year, they were 12-2, beating Georgia Tech in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Turning back to the transfers, there have been some big-time impact players that have left BYU, and others who are barely seeing the field, if at all. That takes us to our first group of players. These are the stars. We look at Jake Retzloff, who transferred to Tulane, threw for nearly 3,200 yards, 15 passing touchdowns to only 7 interceptions, and completed nearly 62% of his passes. He also ran for over 600 yards and 16 touchdowns, helping Tulane to an 11-3 season and helping them to the college football playoff. Keelan Marion was also a star. He was set up to be a big-time contributor in BYU's receiving corps, but instead he decided to take his talents to Miami. At Miami, he was one of their top receivers, catching 57 passes for 746 yards and 2 touchdowns. Miami also had a 13-3 record, losing in the championship game to Indiana. Another superstar was John Henry Daly for Utah. A couple years ago, he barely got any production for BYU, and even last year, his first year with Utah, he also barely had any production. But this year he broke out, having 48 tackles, 17.5 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Now, after his successful season and his head coach heading off, he'll be following that head coach to transfer to Michigan. Another stud who transferred out of BYU was Logan Fano. Years ago, Logan was set up to be an early contributor, but he tore his ACL. He ended up transferring to Utah, where he played 3 productive seasons, including this last year where he had 44 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, and 4.5 sacks. He's now headed to this year's NFL draft. Next up, we'll be talking about all the other guys who transferred to P4 schools, starting with Harrison Taggart. After a successful season with BYU in 2024, Harrison Taggart decided to transfer to Cal, where he had 38 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. After his 1 year at Cal, he is now headed to Utah State to play for Bronco Mendenhall. Joshua Singh was a rotational defensive tackle for BYU who decided to leave in the transfer portal. He went to Vanderbilt this past year, where he had a good year, 27 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 1 sack, for a top-ranked Vanderbilt team that barely missed out on the college football playoff. Crew Wakely was a player who started his career at Utah State before having 2 successful years at BYU. This past year, he decided to transfer to Purdue, where he started out playing a little bit, but ultimately left the team. He finished this year with 9 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Danny Saili is a very interesting situation. He came in as a JUCO transfer to BYU during spring ball, and then left right after spring ball, never suiting up in a game for the Cougars. This past year, for Arkansas, he had 10 tackles and 2.5 tackles for loss. He is currently in the transfer portal looking for a new home. Ice Moa was a big-time 4-star recruit when he committed to BYU. After a few years of playing sparingly, he decided to transfer to Michigan State, where he racked up 12 tackles and 1 tackle for loss this past year. He's now headed to Michigan to team up with his little brother. Tate Romney, little brother of Gunnar Romney and Baylor Romney, decided to transfer to Arizona State. A couple years ago in 2023, he had a productive season, having 52 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 fumble recovery. This past year, though, he only had 13 tackles and 1 fumble recovery. He's now headed to Oklahoma State to finish out his college football career. Next up is Dalton Riggs, a long snapper. Dalton Riggs was with BYU for a time, but decided to transfer to UCF. This past year, he played in 12 games, and now he's headed to Ohio State. Jackson Bowers was a big-time 4-star tight end recruit. He barely played for BYU, and this past year, he transferred to Oregon State, where he played in 6 games. Carson Suesue was a stud quarterback recruit coming out of Granger High School. He was on BYU's roster for a second and then transferred to Oklahoma State, where he played in a couple games. He's now headed to New Mexico State. Next up is all the guys who transferred to Utah State. The first one being Miles Davis. Miles Davis showed plenty of flashes of promise at BYU, but never really cracked the running back rotation in a meaningful way. This past year at Utah State, he was second on the team in rushing yards with 731. He had 8 rushing touchdowns, just over 200 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. Jake Eichhorn played 10 games along Utah State's O-line. Carson was a big-time defensive tackle for Utah State. He racked up 72 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and half a sack. Jacob Conover was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He decided to choose the Cougars, where he was able to team up with former high school teammate Gunnar Romney. He barely played in his time at BYU and decided to transfer to Arizona State. He didn't find much success at Arizona State, so he decided to transfer to Utah State. This past year, he racked up 323 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 28 rushing yards in limited time as backup to Utah transfer Bryson Barnes. Landon Rico, little brother of Ryan Rico, was in a punting competition with Sam Vanderhaar. Ultimately, Vanderhaar won out, and Rico was relegated to a backup role. He decided to transfer to Utah State. In this past year, he had a successful season, punting 68 times for over 2,900 yards, nearly averaging 43 yards per punt. He only had 4 touchbacks and 21 punts within the 20-yard line. Next up is Chika Ebunuha, who had 1 tackle for Utah State after barely playing at BYU. Next up is all the other FBS guys that transferred away from BYU. The first one is a player I made a YouTube short about a few months ago, and that's Ryder Burton. After playing some scout team for BYU, he transferred to West Virginia, where he didn't see the field. This past year, he was with USF, and in replacement for their starting quarterback, he racked up 700 yards, 7 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions, and had -4 rushing yards but 2 rushing touchdowns. Dom Henry was a big-time walk-on recruit for BYU. He didn't end up playing much at all for BYU, so he decided to transfer to FAU. Last year, he had about 80 yards, but then this past year, he had 40 catches for 575 yards and 4 touchdowns. He looks to build on this next year and have another breakout season. David Latu played a bit as a reserve defensive tackle at BYU, but decided to transfer to Boise State. This past year, he racked up 9 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 sack. Michael Daly, older brother of John Henry Daly, went to Rice after a short stint at BYU. In 2024, he had 14 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks, alongside 2 forced fumbles. This past year, in the first few games of the season, he racked up 15 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. McGuire Anderson was a walk-on BYU before transferring to FIU. In 2024, he didn't seem to touch the field much, but in 2025, he had a meaningful impact. He racked up 25 catches for 280 yards and a touchdown. He also averaged 16.6 yards per punt return and had a touchdown on a punt return in their bowl game. Sione Moa, older brother of Ice Moa, decided to transfer to UConn, where he racked up 3 tackles. Nazari Danielson was on BYU's roster before transferring to San Jose State. In 2024, he racked up 13 tackles. But this year, he had 12 games played, but didn't record any tackles. Koa Eldridge was a recruit for BYU. and played very sparingly before transferring to Hawaii, where he caught one pass for 13 yards and had a tackle this year. Zion Allen also transferred to Hawaii, where he had 2 tackles. Corbin Green transferred to Western Kentucky, where he had 1 tackle this past year, and now is headed to Tulsa. Dylan Flowers, who is a transfer from Southern Utah, decided to transfer to Western Kentucky as well, where he racked up 33 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and a touchdown. After that successful season, he's now headed to play for Duke, who won the ACC championship this past year. Iosefa Latuli transferred to Hawaii, where he had 2 tackles this past year. Noah Lugo, the quarterback, was with BYU but didn't play at all, so he transferred to UTSA, where he also didn't play. But now he is headed to Southern Utah in the FCS. Hopefully he gets some playing time down there. Devin Downing was an American Fork product who was on BYU's roster, but after not catching any passes, he decided to transfer to Southern Utah. In 2024, he had 19 catches for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. This year, he had 26 catches for just over 300 yards. Logan Peely, who had some brothers play for BYU, had some success at BYU before transferring to Utah State. In 2023 at Utah State, he had 31 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and a sack. This past year, in 2025 for Utah Tech, he had 55 tackles. Justice Enna had played in 11 games for Utah Tech this year. Zoom Esplin played in 11 games for Weber State this year and is now headed to Idaho State. Beisoifua transferred to Weber State and played in 6 games this past year, but now will be headed to Sacramento State. Dallin Havea had a very successful year for Utah Tech this past year, racking up 43 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and a fumble recovery. He's using that success to head to UCLA. Dallin Johnson was a big-time defensive tackle in high school. He went to BYU and switched to the offensive line. He decided to transfer to Utah Tech, where he played in 5 games this past year. Porter Small wasn't a big-time recruit when he was coming to BYU and didn't really see the field at all. So he transferred to Weber State, where he had 6 tackles and a sack this past year. Brent Zombo transferred to Utah Tech and had 3 tackles. Micah Harper, after having some success early on in his BYU career, ran into a lot of troubles with talented young players behind him and a lot of injuries. This past year for Montana, he had 45 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. He's using that success to head to Iowa State this year. Isaiah Perez originally came to BYU before heading to Eastern Washington. He's had a successful career at Eastern Washington, having 89 career tackles, 12 tackles for loss, and 6 career sacks. This past year was his best yet, having 51 of those tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. Dylan Rollins was one of the highest rated Montana recruits, and he ended up coming to BYU before transferring to Montana State. This past year, he played in 11 games. Victor Ibaka was a big-time recruit whose recruitment bounced around. He ended up finally committing to BYU, but he ended up transferring out and playing some years of junior college before ending up at Texas Southern this past year, where he had 12 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Cade Finnegan was a player for Boise State and actually had a game where he played a lot against BYU. He then came to BYU and was a backup quarterback. This past year, after retiring from football, Abilene Christian decided to give him an offer. He completed 1 pass for 8 yards and had 1 rushing yard. Cale Breslin was a solid running back recruit who came to BYU this past year. Before the season started, he transferred to Montana State, where he didn't record any stats. Nason Coleman was a tight end out of Chandler, Arizona. He came to BYU but didn't play, and so he transferred to NAU, where he had 2 catches for 7 yards and a touchdown. Simone Davis transferred to Stephen F. Austin, where he played 2 games. Brooks Miley has spent the past few years at Northern Colorado. This past year, he had 10 tackles. And the final one we're going to be talking about is Nathaniel Gillis, who in his career at Northern Colorado has 39 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 interception. He also had 8 of those tackles this year and a fumble recovery. We just talked about more than 50 guys who transferred out of BYU. That just goes to show how much roster turnover college football really has these days, especially as BYU has been hit by the transfer bug a lot less than many other teams. You can look to Indiana taking plenty of players from JMU, which has led to Indiana's success. Or you can look to this past offseason where Iowa State's coach was snatched up by Penn State, bringing along many of his players to play for the Nittany Lions as well. Comment down below saying who your favorite transfer in or out has been from your favorite school. And if you think the transfer portal has ruined or helped the college football game that we know and love. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.